So you got pushed around. So what? Get over it. You in a karate dojo, that's the whole point.
It was aggravated assault, Eli. I looked it up. That's a year in prison and a $10,000 fine.
Stop being such a bitch, Dimitri. You know what happens to snitches?
They get immunity.
Snitches get stitches.
I have stitches. I've got several stitches.
Don't do anything stupid, you'll regret it.
Welcome to No Mercy, a Cobra Kai Kickback. My name is Jakob and I represent Miyagi-Do. Much like Daniel-san, I once had a video that I was sure could go viral, but I chose not to release it. The only difference is Daniel-san's was a badass fight, mine was me playing football with a hedgehog, but besides that, we're exactly the same.
Oh, I need to see that. My name is Jim Scampoli. I represent Cobra Kai because even the one friend I have that has sympathy for me when I'm at my lowest, I'm plotting to take everything away from him. And that, there's nothing more Cobra Kai than that. This week, we are discussing episode 4, The Moment of Truth, directed by Michael Grossman, story by Josh Heald, John Hurwitz, Hayden Schlossberg, story and teleplay by Kevin McManus and Matthew McManus. Oh, others, I hope. Father son duo?
Yeah, could be married. I don't know. Who knows? It's not like we could look that up, Jim. So let's talk generally about this episode, because I said last time that I felt like so much that felt like it should be on the nose was just landing perfectly. And in this episode, things don't land as believably, as effortlessly for me. I'll preface it by saying there's still a lot of stuff I like, obviously, but it's just like the moments that they're trying to hit don't hit as hard because they're like, I don't know, they feel a little bit like, oh yeah, I see what you're doing, you know?
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, this is your Robbie hate coming back, right? You're really mad at Robbie's stuff in this episode, correct?
I'm honestly, Daniel-san staggering along a beach, looking like he's been lost in the desert for days, seeing a mirage of Miyagi, like a mirage, if you will, and rushing up to get wisdom from his dead ghost sensei, and then accidentally getting wisdom from another fisherman dude with an accent. That's kind of what I'm talking about here.
Yeah,
even though I know, like, I get that moment and it totally makes sense and it puts him in a place where that makes sense at the end of the episode, and I like that, but just the execution of it, I'm like, well, again, I think I go back and forth on it, because if I watch that without having watched the rest of Cobra Kai leading up to it, I'm like, if you watch that scene out of context, you'd be rolling your eyes so hard, you know? And it's all a question of how much in the moment you are, how able you are to accept it. It's just, there's a couple of them, and that's what I'm thinking of. Not so much Robbie. I actually kind of am okay with Robbie like setting up the phone and fighting them, because that's a stupid thing to do, and he gets hit in the head for it. So, you know, I don't mind that.
Yeah, I kind of almost expected the guy they cast to be like Pat Morita's grandson or something. Like, I was like, what is the connection here? Oh, because it is so thick. Just some random guy. I did look it up. I was like, is this guy somebody? Is this a cameo part? But also, it's weird because everything you're saying is true, but I still love it. I'm still there. I do kind of wish that maybe they kept it at just him seeing a fisherman in the distance type deal, and, you know, thinking of Miyagi, and then maybe figuring out a different way for him to get the epiphany or just the balance in his mind that he needs. Because I think just the shot and maybe a little bit of the music is enough. Without you're the guy also kind of giving him the advice on top of that. It's just tough, because I do agree with what you're saying, but it's still like it's a weird like manipulation thing that works on me. Like, you know, they people bring up that Spielberg or something can be very manipulative, even though he's a great filmmaker, but sometimes it just always works, even though you know that they're working you, but you allow it. You just lay there and take it.
Yeah, I don't know. I have nothing against it conceptually, just as far as like everything that is so over the top in this show, 99% of it just works for me perfectly anyway. So when it doesn't, it just sticks out a little bit. Like, and again, there's nothing wrong with that scene. It makes perfect sense. It's just kind of like Daniel staggering there like he's lost hope, and I'm like, what is like, you still have a successful car dealership, you're not like Johnny at the end of your wits, like, even though he's, I don't know, we'll get into it. It starts with Dimitri.
Well, before we get into it, just the other broad question, and I guess since we're kind of talking some of the episode in general, I come back to this Kreese thing. Like, what are we supposed to think about Kreese here? Because again, they do the thing they did in the first episode where, you know, it feels like we're getting like a real moment, or it feels like we're getting like a peek behind the curtain. And I guess it's to sympathize with Kreese and sympathize with why Johnny would want to help him. But like, so is it all part of the plan? Like, you know, I mean, I guess it's not all part of the plan, right? Clearly he's in, like, this is his reality, what we see. Like, he's bumming around to, like, I guess, vet shelters or wherever he is at the moment, homeless shelter, vet shelter, something or other. And he's just, I guess, using that to his advantage. Or is there a part of him that is, you know, that does care for Johnny? Like, what is supposed to be the read? Because they keep almost giving us these moments, but then they'll have Kreese kind of wink at us, the audience, be like, hey, remember, I'm Kreese. So, like, what do you think about that strategy as a whole?
Yeah, the last scene was another one of those moments where I was like, this is very on the nose now. And it feels like it when he's like, you know, talking to the class, he's being made the sensei. And he talks about how you make your opponent think you're retreating. And just as they let their guard down, that's when you strike the hardest or whatever. And I guess Miguel all the way throughout is like, he's clearly telling us what he's doing, right? Like, all the time he's like, he's clearly full of shit, Johnny. Like, what the fuck, sensei? And he just says it outright. So like you said, when he's in the shelter and they're talking there, it does seem genuine. And then it has this moment at the end to kind of remind us that he's an antagonist. I feel like it's kind of there to go like, don't worry, this is going somewhere. It's not just drama between these two. There's a bad guy. There's going to be a fight because there's bad, and like, not it. I think that's what it is, because it, like you were saying in our discussion of the first episode this season, it's like leaving it more ambivalent would just leave it more open for interpretation. But maybe it is open for interpretation all the same, because we had Drew on Cobra Kai Kid on YouTube, and his read was more like it is genuine what he's saying, but then he's just such a fucking snake, he'll use that to his advantage later when he's in more of a position of power.
Yeah, no, that is a good point. And yeah, I mean, I guess I don't want to get too into it because we're going to talk about the episode first. We'll get a little bit more into it as we discuss the episode as a whole. So we can rewind a bit. It does open with, you know, great moment, great, nice cold open here with Dimitri and Kreese. And it's hilarious. Like, using the, you know, the audience, we're more aware of the reality of the situation. But Dimitri's like, oh, thank God you're here, not Johnny. That other guy, he's intense. And it's like, no, you don't understand. This is the, you know, that if there's an evil, like, this show tries not to be like someone's evil, but then it also is like, well, no, but Kreese is evil, of course.
Yeah.
And I like, they don't even really show it. It's just, you know, we see all the buildup, and then we see him he gets to leave with a nice bloody nose because, you know, Kreese gave him what for. But then it's interesting that even Miguel understands, because like when Miguel hears about this and like talks to Johnny about it, it's weird because like Johnny would almost do that. I guess maybe he didn't quite do that, but he's not, I don't know. Like, what's the line for abuse? Like, it's okay for Johnny, but not okay with Kreese?
They have the children hit each other. That way they go to prison.
Yeah.
Like when he had Aisha punch them all in the face because they'd never been punched in the face. I think the difference, I mean, there is a difference, and Miguel can tell it. Like, one way to quantify it would be that Kreese has no intention of taking on this kid as a student and is just annoyed that he's spouting shit about his tattoo. And Dimitri is like, I guess, I get that he's supposed to be like, doesn't have the best social skills, but like from the way he talks and is all the time, but like this is so over the top as well, but it kind of works because it's building tension in the scene. But also when he starts talking about, oh, he knows all about snakes now, I guess, and all this shit, and then but I'd say Miguel is just, I think it's more apparent in this episode, like story structure wise, he just totally fulfills the role of the hero, and not talking about like the hero in a, like Luke Skywalker or whatever. I'm talking more about he's the character who throughout is always right, and the person who's telling the main character what to do. And he's right the whole way through, all along in this season. Like he does some growing in the first season, of course, and some growing in the second one as well. But like he's just so right here, and I think because we're so led into Kreese is a bad guy, Kreese is a bad guy. The show keeps telling us Kreese is a bad guy. Miguel's the only one who sees that. I don't know. That's why this wouldn't work at all if not for, say, the scene last episode where Kreese actually gives some helpful advice to Johnny, So that's why I was talking about that being such a great moment, because otherwise there's no reason to believe this. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're right. That is, it's an important moment for Johnny, and then they lay it on, like, I don't want to say lay it on thick, because I don't mean it in a negative way, but like then like when he sees the state of this strong teacher from his youth kind of being like disciplined by some like nurse or social worker or something later on, it like everything kind of makes sense, at least from Johnny's point of view. But you're right, Miguel's not buying that bullshit. But yeah, back at the beginning we have Sam and Robbie, and Robbie's kind of talking about how like we need to be badass, like the Cobra Kai, and Robbie's coming out a little bit because he's like, he's concerned about Miyagi-Do, but they need to look cool. And I guess part of I guess it plays into what we see with this episode, because again, Robbie's past shows back up. I know you love that when his bad friends arrive. But we're seeing that he's getting frustrated with Miyagi-Do and how it's not, catching on, I guess. Then Daniel comes in, and we get to hear some stories about his first car salesman job and how, he outsold that guy in the first month doing it, because it's just like what Mr. Miyagi told him. It's about honesty and show it, like having what is it? Having something to showing your true self or something like that. What's his whole advice here?
I forget his exact words, but I think it is a very good way of sort of talking about his transition into where he is now from where he was. He talks about honesty and like not trying to upsell people, letting people come to you, much like in Miyagi-Do. You don't attack, you're the defendant. Someone comes to you and you turn, and their action turns it against them or whatever. So he did that, but with cars, and that ties into the theme of the episode. So again, there's a lot of stuff I like in this episode, and you get the idea here as well, as we're almost halfway through the season. This season is about Daniel's slow ascent as a dojo and Cobra Kai's slow fall as Kreese gets his clutches into it. That's what it feels like anyway. So for Daniel, I really, even though I was making fun of it a little bit, I really like that we get to see him fail over and over again, because he's right here. Like what he says makes sense and it's a good plan, but it just doesn't work. So it makes him more likable just inherently that he tries stuff and it doesn't work.
Yes, yeah. Then we have Kreese just telling war stories. It's funny to just even think about how like if you went to a karate class and then just your karate sensei's friend is always hanging out and telling you these stories. I mean, I guess the whole thing of Cobra Kai is about being badass, and I guess he is telling badass stories, even if Miguel's kind of the one that's like pointing out that he's kind of mixing up his lies or what have you.
Yeah.
In the midst of that, I mean, I guess this is setting something up. Again, I don't remember where it goes, but we're only focused on this episode. But we have the landlord's back, and they're raising the rent because, hey, Johnny's making more money, so I'm gonna raise the rent. That's the deal. We have a handshake deal. But they're also getting into how he's expanding it a bit, going into this stock room that they made him take all his stuff away from. So things are building. Seeds are being planted.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scorching indictment of capitalism, if I may be so European about it, but it is saying that, of course, that's how it works. You make more money, so I take more rent. The capitalist system is set up for us to always exploit and take as much as is possible, because that is how capital grows. And yeah, great to see that portrayed here in a show created by two of the biggest media conglomerates in the world that do the exact same thing, Google and Sony. Thanks, guys.
Yes, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, every great thing is co-opted by a corporation. Just remember that, okay?
Yeah, except us. Shows what you know never makes any money, and we never will. That's our promise to you, the listener. That's how you know we're not talking bullshit.
It's only for the love. So then Johnny has everyone fall in line. He's going through some of the new recruits, shitting on him as he's wont to do. We do see that Raymond's there, and he's saying, hey, parents can't be here. It's an insurance thing. But hey, no, he's not a parent. He's there. He can take on some high school kids. It don't matter. Plus, he lives with his mom and he doesn't have to pay rent. So he's got money. And Johnny needs money. So everything works out. But then we get the big introduction of Tori with a Y, because we need another badass chick. Miyagi-Do's got a badass chick. Cobra Kai needs a badass chick. Even though they have Aisha, I guess they need another badass chick. Maybe.
Well, Aisha's the one who said to Sam, like, we need more badass chicks, if you'll recall, at the end of season 1. So she's quite happy to get some company.
Very true. So yeah, because Johnny puts out the challenge, like, who wants to take on the champ? And Tori steps up.
I like that Raymond was about to raise his hand there as well before Tori. So, like, that would have been fun. I'm sad we didn't get to see that.
Yeah, so then we have Miguel versus Tori. They kind of have some nice back and forth. I mean, Tori is already tough.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it's a little annoying to me. Like, she's already tough. I guess they do explain it away because she did take some kickboxing classes or something. Plus, you just already get the vibe that she's a bad girl. Plus, you're already getting the vibe that this love triangle is about to become a love rectangle, because now you got Miguel, Tori, Sam, and Robbie. I almost forgot Robbie.
And Dimitri. Yeah, you're right.
And you know how dumb I am? I didn't even pick up, like, when she says Tori with a Y, and then my girlfriend's like, "Oh, is that like Allie with an I?" And I was like, "Holy shit, it is!"
I didn't pick up on that either. We are idiots. Dude, where's her girlfriend? Get her on the show.
And we've been watching all this shit. We've been fucking intrigued in Karate Kid and Cobra Kai, and I didn't pick up that obvious thing. I was like, "Oh, gee, holy fuck!" That just blew my mind. Tori with a Y, Allie with an I.
Yeah, no, yeah. I guess, yeah, I'm not annoyed by the badassness. Like, at least initially, it's like, yeah, cool. Another cool character, like you said, seems like badass. We'll get more into it, I'm sure. And then they go to the quote unquote beach, which means going to a fancy house with a pool, I guess. This is another of those American things. And then
even I don't get that one. I guess it's a beach club. That's the only thing I think I know, because I mean, I'm not rich like that. It's like a rich person thing. It's like a beach club. I think it's on the beach, but like it's a nice resort, so you just hang out by the pool for the most part.
Yeah. And Aisha chats up Tori in the supermarket. Well, no, the convenience store, the little place that's right there on the strip mall. And they get to chatting, and Aisha talks about how she's not on good terms with Sam. And I'm like, well, they were on kind of good terms there when she was Sam was trying to pick her up after her class, and she invited her to come hang out with the Cobra Kais. But then I guess the rivalry, as she mentions later, is basically like, your dad's talking hella shit on YouTube, and we can't have that.
Yeah, because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, they're not really on bad terms, but yeah, they explain it. It does make sense. I mean, Aisha's very Cobra Kai, and it's, been a thing that's made her more confident in her life, so it makes sense. It's very important to her, and even though she does like Sam, she doesn't want, Sam's dad is the villain. Sam's dad is the crease to people that are in Cobra Kai. This is a small thing. I mean, I want to cut back real quick to when they're driving to the beach, when they have Daniel, Robbie, and Sam in the car. From personal experience, I watched the movie. Well, I have a Patreon for my show, Jim and Them, and we watched the movie John Rambo yesterday, which again, I guess a nice 80s callback sequel thing. And such a small thing of having them drive in a car in Cobra Kai and actually be on the road and drive on the beach and actually have to put the effort into whatever they do. They have to put the car on the back of like a trailer or something and mount the cameras. John Rambo, a movie that was released in theaters, every car scene is an obvious green screen, and it takes you out of it so much that I just want to give props to Cobra Kai for even for like a small 30-second scene, whatever it might be. The fact that they aren't just in front of a green screen. I don't get why green screens look terrible now. I guess it's because we understand what goes into just making one, but green screens when someone's in a car look awful. It's sorry to step on this soapbox right now, but I'm just so proud of Cobra Kai for just going the extra mile and just filming an actual car driving down the street with a few lines of dialogue. Thank you, Cobra Kai.
Yeah, no, great point. I mean, they're in the banana boat, and like you said, they probably had to spend like a bunch of money just to do that. But can you imagine them like with a little fan making their hair go all whooshy with the top down and the green screen? It could have been real shit. Thanks for putting some money into that. Looks good. Regular car driving stuff. And yeah, like you said, like things just keep it simple, guys. Like you don't need to do the terrible green screen stuff. It doesn't always help. So anyway, we get the clip from the start of the show. Dimitri about him getting stitches. And of course, Miguel goes and warns Johnny. And to Johnny's credit, while he says, like, I have a handle on it, and I keep saying, like, Miguel's so right throughout, Johnny does listen to him, because it's after this that he follows Kreese to try to figure out what the fuck's going on.
Oh, yeah, he's on the case. He's snooping. Now, this is when I want to get into, like, how, like, is Kreese aware? I mean, because it's not like Johnny's very good at following him. It's so very obvious. Is Kreese aware of this or no? I guess he's not, right?
I would guess not.
Because I'm trying to figure out, like, how premeditated is all this stuff? Like, is this the point that Kreese is like, okay, now I'll reveal myself, so he, this will get me even more in his good graces? But I mean, I'm probably overthinking this, but it's because I just get a little annoyed that they keep having to tell us he's evil instead of just letting it breathe for a little bit and maybe having us kind of like second guess him. Like, because we already know he's evil. So maybe let us, the audience, be like, what's he up to? Or maybe we'll have a little sympathy for him here. But I don't know. They're always winking at us. So in my mind, it's like Kreese knows he's following him. He paid the lady to yell at him.
This is because you watched Karate Kid Part 3, and he was involved in the convoluted plotting that was going on there, where Terry Silver was pretending to be a guy and everything. And like, I blame Danielson being messed up in the head on that as well, because like, imagine, it was all a Machiavellian plot. Of course he thinks Cobra Kai is evil and that Johnny's like lying to him and everything. Like, remember that scene where Kreese literally like jumped out from behind a thing like rah! Like a monster in Karate Kid Part 3. So I don't blame you for thinking that way. But I do think what the show's telling us is that he is found out here. He didn't intend to be found out. And he reveals himself, and it is honest. And maybe it's just, maybe there's part of him that knows that being honest here is the only way he can get Johnny's sympathy and so on. Maybe it's how he's lived this past decade, etc. That sort of, I don't know, it's humbled him enough where he's able to actually do that and even do it honestly. But yeah, I believe that it's there. But also, I just think he's the kind of piece of shit who will play on your heartstrings and totally mean it in the moment, but stab you in the back later anyway.
Yeah, can't help his nature, basically. And yeah, I think it was in the last episode, going back on Daniel's thing, is he does bring up that, I guess, like how he's like, Kreese, he faked his own death twice, apparently. Because, he thought he was dead in the third one, and then thought he was dead again in Cobra Kai, and he's back. But yeah, so meanwhile, Daniel, he's got his plan. He's trying to entice these parents at the beach club, get word out about Cobra Kai, not Cobra Kai, about Miyagi-Do, and, hey, like, it's good for your kid, discipline, he's not quite saying be badass, but he is hinting at that. It is almost like a Johnny type sales pitch to like, hey, get your son out of the house, get your kids out of the house for a bit. They get some good exercise. They learn some good principles. Miyagi-Do all the way.
He can't even convince his own son to do that, so I'm not sure why he thought that this would work. Aisha's mom is a total cockblock, comes in with a video. I can't tell if she's like intentionally like, oh, fuck your dojo. Like, is she on Team Cobra Kai? She must have bought a beach towel, right? At least.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
She knows she's got a beach towel. It is Kim Fields plays her, which she was in The Facts of Life. She's also in Living Single. It was just weird because I recognized her, and I was like, it's a weird kind of bit part that they brought her in. So it's a nice throwback to see Kim Fields play
Yeah.
his mom.
I did not recognize her, and I haven't seen those, so I don't know. But yeah, so we have speaking of Aisha and Sam are kind of making up, and it's going pretty well. Talking about just you and Abs all summer training. Like, all right, I'm not telling Miguel. Like, it's going well. And then Tori with a Y shows up, swiped a bottle from the bar. I see no problem with this. Sam's being a goody two shoes, I feel. What's your opinion, Jim?
No, I agree. She is being a goody two shoes. I could almost understand though, where it's like you could almost be like, well, hey, it's one thing if we're like at a pond party or beach party, wherever they were, that bonfire time. But it's like our parents are here. I don't want to be sneaking around getting drunk. Like I can almost see that. But yeah, she's being a goody two shoes. And we can kind of follow this thread because then when Amanda's wallet goes missing, it is kind of absurd that she would immediately think Tori did it. Because, like, it's one thing to be like, oh, high school kids swipe booze. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean that she's also swiping wallets. But
yeah, no, it's like we're supposed to think that her jealousy with Tori's apparent relationship with Aisha, who they just met like today, but supposedly her jealousy there is enough for her to make this leap. It doesn't make sense to me, and it makes Sam, like, her character, it feels a little bit wobbly. So another one of these moments where I'm like, it's not totally awful, but it's kind of like, what? I guess this is what's happening. But Jim, the most important bit.
Yes. And are you getting into
we got to talk about the most important bit. I'm sure we both thought about it. It's in those LaRusso jeans when she falls over the table and is somehow covered in cake. Exactly how Daniel-san was covered in spaghetti. I know you're thinking the same thing, Jim.
Absolutely. It's such a great, like, you want to talk nostalgia and callbacks. This is such a great callback because, on the surface, it just seems like a ridiculous joke the way she's covered with, cake. But if you didn't have Karate Kid on the mind necessarily watching this, you're not picking up that, it's full circle from Daniel being covered in like tomato sauce, whatever it was, but a ridiculous amount of food all over him. And now Sam is in the same position after she falls through the table because she's obscenely covered in food. It's so great.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I didn't think at first that it was like, in quotes, intentional, because, it could just be we do unrealistic, like it's heightened reality, whatever. But it is like you and I were talking about. It's just for Daniel-san a ridiculous amount of bolognese on him, and it's so. Yeah,
there's no doubt in my mind that this is intentional. They know what they're doing here, but that's what's so great about it.
It's also like in the next scene, she has absolutely none of that on her. So I guess, well, they must have showers there. They have a pool, so I guess that works out. But like, it's insane that this is what happens. But I love it. It's insane that she would accuse her, but it just makes me like this. It's moments like this where the justification isn't quite there. That if people dislike a character, I'm like, well, you kind of painted yourself into a corner there with the writing because you didn't give us enough to justify this. Now, if afterwards they showed that, she actually did steal the wallet, that would be such a cheap move because it would totally release Sam from the actual mistake that she made, because she would have been magically right, even though she didn't have enough reason to think so. But they don't do that because, as we know, it's Robbie's friends who have the stash in the same place. And we get a flashback to last season as he goes and sees this. We talked about this last episode. I think it's simply because on YouTube they can't have a previously on, so they just have more flashbacks to previous episodes, and I think it's a bit shit. But you know, whatever.
Yeah, you really don't need this flashback. I mean, I get it that maybe someone might, I don't know, like, how you can't be 4 episodes into season 2 and not at least remember that. I mean, even if it was a year ago, maybe it would take you a second. You would just pick up by context. Even if you never watched it, dude, you'd pick it up by context because he's already mentioned like, oh, I used to work here last summer, and it's already very apparent that there's something wrong. That he's like,
he says that he says to Daniel's wife. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting her name.
Because I'm talking about even before that. But yeah, then when he talks to Amanda, he basically explains, that they were up to no good there. I mean, she says like, you didn't hurt anyone, right? He's like, no, nothing like that. So it's pretty clear they were like ripping people off or doing something. So you don't need to see that. And it's like a very long flashback because they show like the fight and then like him scurrying away and even kind of like pointing to the camera. Like, it's almost like, hey, that was on camera. They're trying to tie it into how he set up the phone camera, maybe. I don't know. It's a long flashback. It's not needed.
But I guess the one reason it makes sense is they show him getting beaten up, so that builds the expectation that now that he's learned more, he's going to win. So when he gets, and I even was like, I didn't quite remember from the first time I watched it. I was like, wait, what happens here? And if he had beaten them up and he filmed it and everything, that would have been dumb. It wouldn't have been good. So it's great that he just gets hit, he's teenagery enough to have this idea that this is going to work and this is going to bring a business, and then Daniel-san's going to adopt me, like, and he's going to love me. Like, that's his thinking of recording this. And so it makes sense because obviously Daniel would never set that up, and it sets up a great ending as well when they decide not to publish it. But yeah, so Daniel jumps in, saves the day, totally echoing the moment from the Karate Kid, of course, when Mr. Miyagi saves him. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's Miyagi-Do on full display, which is nice. And he's kind of got the same like moves somewhat when Mr. Miyagi got to beat up some young kids. At least these kids seem a little older. I don't know if they're necessarily in high school. I mean, definitely not the long hair guy. He's not in high school. Come on. But yeah, he gets to kick their ass. And it is nice because, it feels like this is the obvious thing. This is how we get everyone to join Miyagi-Do. But no, that's not the Miyagi-Do way. That's not what Mr. Miyagi would have wanted. And Daniel, at this point, since he spoke to the ghost of Mr. Miyagi, who inhabited that fisherman, he understands that's not something that Mr. Miyagi would want either. Cutting back real quick, I mean, again, we already mentioned it, but like Kreese in the shelter, Johnny witnesses it and kind of hears Kreese's backstory. The footage they use, I mean, because there's a flashback there, but I think that's fine. I don't know if was that in Karate Kid. I guess it was in Karate Kid 3. I know I've read that they have access to dailies from the movies, so they do have some footage that wasn't used, or maybe it was just alternate takes or things here and there. But I guess that they do kind of have that in the beginning of Karate Kid 3, where he's just kind of like roaming the streets.
I think that's in there, because they show how he's all down on his luck and all. Before Terry Silver comes to the rescue, right? I mean, because we follow him. That's the thing where in part 2, we follow Mr. Miyagi and Daniel-san, and then we see the same moment at the start of 3, again, going back to the same day in history, the only important day, the nexus of time and space in this universe. And then we go ahead and follow him out of there. So, yeah, I think so.
I think so too.
Because it's a little bit, because it's like obviously part 2 is like a year or whatever, right? Or a summer. I don't remember. But like, so there's time between the ending and Kreese being down on his luck and Silver coming in for the rescue.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Because when they go to Okinawa, because I love calling back to it again. The timing's so perfect when he gets to the airport and But yeah, and I mean, it's a nice, like, oh, that sounds like defeat. and defeat does not exist in this dojo. Great way to bring that back to poor old Kreese here. I mean, he does mention working for a friend, and he felt like it was charity or something. I assume he's talking about Terry Silver there. Like, dude, you have to just resign yourself that we're gonna see Terry Silver again. And I for one welcome Terry Silver to the Cobra Kai universe, in my opinion.
Okay, well, I guess we'll see. Yeah, I was trying to remember. He says he got an offer for a friend that felt like charity, but I'm not sure if he took the offer or not. I'm not sure because apparently, the fact that they lost at the end of Karate Kid Part 3 meant that Terry Silver somehow lost all his money and didn't make, like, they could still have Cobra Kai dojos all over, but I guess the publicity of winning the tournament wasn't there, so whatever. They got these bullshits, like,
I feel like we're always talking about Karate Kid 3 now, but
yeah.
Can't help it. But if I remember correctly, I think after they lost, people were throwing their free t-shirts back. So Terry Silver probably read that as like, well, if I can't even give away a t-shirt, I mean, no one's going to want to do karate at Cobra Kai.
Yeah. Yeah, he says War Buddy offered him a job, but I felt like it was a handout. From that, and then he says, so I banged around here and there. So from what I understood from that, he didn't take a job offer. But you're right. I'm sure that was Terry Silver. Like, who the fuck else was his friend in the universe at that point? But yeah, like you said, they sort of get it together. Sam is now trying to text Aisha to patch things up, much like Miguel was texting her to patch things up. And then Robbie shows off the potentially viral video, and Daniel's son's all centered and like talks about, rightly so, he talks about how Mr. Miyagi didn't recruit students. He was like, as we talked about as well, the films had to jump through so many hoops to get Mr. Miyagi to agree to something because he was so like humble and so like we talked about, like defense. They come to you, like with the Daniel's car sales technique. Like he didn't even want to teach karate. He just happened to be really good at it. So that's the only part where I'm like, how would Mr. Miyagi feel with the photo on the wall and the ancestors and all of that? That I feel like he would, much like the fisherman here, realize that Daniel was going about it all wrong, even if his heart was in the right place. And thankfully, Daniel realizes that here as well.
Yes. Yeah. Because you almost do start to second guess, would Mr. Miyagi even be on board with the Miyagi-Do karate existing? But I guess the idea of Cobra Kai emerging and spreading again, maybe it's a little flimsy, but it does work. And especially the fact that if Daniel's not going to do something like try to get a viral video of him kicking some kids' asses to have people show up, it's like, yeah, it works out at least that Miyagi would maybe not be opening up a dojo, but he definitely wouldn't be against kids looking for help and coming there for guidance and balance. He would definitely be smiling. He'd be doing his end of Karate Kid Part 1 smile and look as we fade out on him. I think he definitely would appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. And another quick note that I really like, that Daniel's whole thing through all the films and the show has always been, he's had this frantic energy. It makes him a good car salesman and everything. But what has he always lacked? What has Mr. Miyagi always told him? You need to be patient. Like, things take their time. He's not good at that because he's so active. He'll jump from one thing to the next, like quickly. Let's make it happen. Boom, boom, boom. Let's sell these cars. But that's the problem all the way throughout this and the past episode, that he's trying and failing. He says in his commercial on YouTube that at Miyagi-Do, it's all about the karate. But then at the start of this episode, you have Sam going to him saying like, hey, maybe you can come teach us some karate. And he's like, nah, we're going to go recruit at the beach.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally him not making it all about the karate. So the arc he's going through in the previous episode and this one, it just makes total sense where who his character is at his very core is someone who has problems with all of these teachings and patience and everything. But that's why it's so useful to him and makes him a more balanced person when he can connect with those things.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's a great read. And it's that Jersey boy in him. It's that East Coast fast paced. Now, let's do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, he finds that wisdom, and then like a sign from God, Dimitri arrives, and perfect timing. He walks in, and I think we've mentioned in the past, I do really enjoy the slow roll of Dimitri, and we'll get to see more of that in the next few episodes. But after that moment, we are back at Cobra Kai, and we see the olive branches continued to be extended to Kreese as Johnny defers to him on a question about the back kick. But this is where we get like the big wink from Kreese, and the audience, we know something's up, and Miguel knows something's up. So something is up.
Yeah. And just before we wrap, I don't think this is intentional, but I kind of really laughed at Dimitri coming in there going, it was unclear if the gate was the front door, if I was supposed to ring the doorbell. Because if you'll recall, the postman who materializes in the back garden in Karate Kid Part 2, and we were both like, what? How did he get there? And like, people just keep wandering into the back garden here. I guess it's because they're always hanging out there. It's not like it doesn't make sense. It's just that how it was shot back then was like, mail delivery for you, like, what the fuck? And Dimitri's like, yeah, I don't know. I guess I just walked in like everyone fucking does in this place.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's what.
But on that note, more of our television coverage can be found at showswhatyouknow.com. Please also do leave a review on Apple Podcasts if you use Apple Podcasts, or if you don't, you can just go to apple.com. They have a website, and you can make an account and review the podcast, and it would be very much appreciated. Beyond that, Jim, I think there's literally just one more thing, or maybe three.
Ooh, and what would those three things be?
Let me think. I believe it would be strike fast,
strike hard,
no mercy.